Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Miles Stroter, and I'm back. Yo, after the first episode, man, we got some wonderful feedback and got some cool opportunities offered to us. And I think I told LeAlan, and he's like, "Hell, we got to pause, man." And we did not pause because we ran out of things to say, but people actually felt what we were talking about. The messages start coming in, real conversations, people seeing themselves in what we were talking about. And that's when it hit us that this isn't just content, this is something bigger. So we stepped back, not to disappear, but to understand what we started. So we went on sort of a hiatus. And because most people were living inside systems they never questioned, following paths they never chose. And the real question is, what does it take to break out of that? This isn't a restart. This is a deeper dive. Welcome back to the Deprogram. I'd like to bring in my co-host, my guy, my coach, LeAlan Jones. Hey, LeAlan, what's up, man? Hey, coach, are you there?
I am here. How are you doing? How has it been on hiatus?
Oh, man, hiatus has been treating me well, man. I got this bronze tan, man.
You trying to match me with the eyewear? You trying to match me with eyewear?
I had to go find some glasses, man.
Okay, so are you going to explain to the people what happened after the first episode?
Man, I kind of gave them a bit of reflection, about what happened after our first episode. We received some wonderful feedback and even offered some wonderful opportunities. And I told them that we were discussing what we should do next. And you said, well, what do you mean what we should do next? And we let it marinate. And actually, we need to go on a hiatus. And so hiatus we did. I went out to Aruba, man, and did some scuba diving.
I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, but like I was telling the viewers, we got some messages from some of my old teammates, some messages from some people that I don't even know, and they had a bunch of questions for us, and it was too much too soon. I think we're on to something with the Deprogram. What you think?
I just want to be authentic, and I think it's that's the most important thing, to be as authentic. And I think looking at the response, I just want to make sure that I'll stay true to being authentic, because I think there are a lot of people that do things like this, but I'm not necessarily looking for the attention. I think that the more I look at what's going on in this space in terms of podcasting, is that people are looking for information that they can't readily find. And I think this topic, especially with you willing to be so open about your recruiting process at this time, and all that encapsulates is truly remarkable. And I just want to make sure that I'm authentic to that process. And I'm not here to agitate or aggravate anybody. It's just, in this instance, be very authentic about the things that need to be discussed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that last episode, I watched it a couple times over, and we really didn't touch on a lot, dude. And so I was trying to figure out, man, what do we do for a second episode? And this isn't the second episode. This is our hiatus episode, dude. And I kind of want to recap a couple of the topics that we touched on in episode 1, and answer some questions that we got from some of the viewers, dude. And the main question was like, well, why didn't you tell me or tell the student body at King, your players, about your past and your accolades? They were like, man, how did it feel being coached by a Peabody winner, a Kennedy Award winner, an award-winning journalist? And I want y'all to set the record straight, man. LeAlan didn't even tell us. He didn't even tell us about his accolades. He was straight coaching, man. But why didn't you share that information with us?
I think what I didn't want to happen happened anyway, relative to just leaving it about football and not bringing that into me trying to coach. Does that make sense?
Go into further details, please.
If you bring all of these discussions to the table, right, and you say, well, I'm an author, I'm this and I'm that. Well, some parents already knew that, because by being at King College Prep, many of the parents or grandparents of the King College Prep student, parents would have known of me because they work for Department of Human Services, they work for Chicago Public Schools, they work for the Department of Housing or for CHA, because that was the King College Prep parent. the workers that worked in social services in the city. So they were aware of my work anyway. So I didn't feel a need to bring that up and trying to coach at the same time, because I just wanted to coach. I didn't want to have my opportunity in journalism and in media to interfere with what I wanted to do it as a coach, but it still happened anyway.
Yeah, no, for sure it did happen. Me and LeAlan, we lost communication all throughout my 4 years of college. But throughout that 4 years, I started doing some research on my own. I actually read his book, and I'm like, Dad, well, man, why didn't he say something? Why didn't he tell us, man? And I thought it was just really cool because of the relationship that we did form, the bond that we formed had nothing to do with his accolades. And I want to do like a correction from the first episode. You stated that I was the first big-time recruit or Division I student athlete, and it actually was you, man. Don't get more Division I than Florida State. You had a unique college experience. Can you talk about that?
Well, I got recruited to go to Florida State because I was headed for the Ivy League. Based upon the work and the opportunities that I had, I was, looking to go the Ivy League route because that's what everybody suggested that I do. But I had the opportunity to speak in 1996 at the American Bar Association at a conference they were having. And I ended up being on the panel discussion at that event. And the wife of the president of Florida State was there, Patsy Palmer, who was the wife of the president of Florida State at the time, Sandy Dellenberg. And I ended up speaking at the event, but she was there in the audience when I was speaking and invited me the next day to go to a session with Attorney Janet Reno's, not U.S. Attorney, U.S. Attorney Janet Reno, I think it was. And it was a session that she was at, and I was at the table with her, Father Drennan from Georgetown, who was well known for his protest during the Vietnam War, and I think a couple other colleges. And she told me she was the wife of the president of Florida State, and would I come down for a visit to the school? And I actually did in October of that year. And I actually flew down on a Thursday, I think on a Thursday, and got to see Florida State play Mississippi State on Thursday Night Football for ESPN in the President's Box.
Wow. And so that's what another question was. It said that, what does he mean he studied football administration at Florida State? Will you talk about your experience, how you experienced football at Florida State? Where'd you watch the games in the press box, you said?
No, the President's Box.
The President's Box.
The president of the university. I stayed at that time with one of the alphas. I stayed in their house because I didn't want to stay. I could have stayed in the president's house for my entire trip, but I wanted to get the authentic experience. So they allowed me to stay with the BSU president, who was an alpha at the time. I can't remember, Jared. Jared was the roommate, but they were alphas. So I got to be at their apartment while I was, at Florida State, but then I spent the last night at the president's house, and I got to see campus. I got to meet every dean of every school that I wanted, that I may have been interested in. And, I was a prize recruit for Florida State, not as a football player, but as a highly recognized award-winning journalist, and after that, an author.
And so once you had that experience, what was it like coming back to 44th and Drexel, to King High School, man?
When you meet Bobby Bowden, why are you laughing? When you meet Bobby Bowden and you see how decentralized, even though Bobby Bowden was the name at Florida State, his assistant coaches were the guys that ran it. Mark Richt was the offensive coordinator that ended up being the head coach at Georgia that had a lot of success. Bobby Bowden didn't interfere with Mark Richt as an offensive coordinator. You have the defensive coordinator, Mickey Andrews. Mickey Andrews ran the defense. So if you went to a Florida State practice, you say studying Florida State football, you go start at the top and you look at a leader like Bobby Bowden, and you go to a practice and his coaches and assistant coaches are all on the field. And where's Bobby Bowden? He's looking from above, in a 30-foot tower. He's watching everything from a 30-foot tower and not interfering in anything, but letting his coaches and assistant coaches coach. And that was just crazy because you would, coming from 44th Street, you had it was a one-man show and nobody could get in the way. But at Florida State, I mean, all of those assistant coaches had the ability to coach at a very intense level, and there was no interference from the head coach. It was very decentralized.
Right. And so you had a hands-on lesson in leadership.
In observational leadership. And then listening, because you got to remember, I wasn't on the team, but I had access to everything. Like, I could go work out at the facility.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like I got to talk to players. I remember I wanted to walk on the year after the book, because I was doing a book tour when I came to college. You know what I mean? I was still technically on a book tour. Every weekend of my freshman year, I was flying out of town to be somewhere promoting the book or winning some type of award or being at some type of event, wherever it could have been in New York, DC, Chicago, at that time, Atlanta, because I was 100 Black Men. I was 100 Black Men Youth of the Year from Tommy Dortch in 96, 97.
Okay. And another question, what was that? Because I made the image of Barack Obama looking at you. What event was that? That was another
That was
question.
my freshman year. That was October of 1997. Me and Lloyd Newman, who was the co-author of the book, childhood friend, we grew up. His brother actually played at Dunbar, Mike Newman, who was a very good offensive lineman, played at Northern Illinois, played at Western. That was October of 97, and we flew up because I want to say Windows to the World, which was a CHA organization that worked on housing issues. They flew us back up in October because we had won their award, and Barack Obama, who was state senator at that point, he was the presenter of that award. And that's where I was supposed to meet Obama because a technology guy that lived in Kenwood, Oakland, who moved in when Obama first ran for state senate when he took over Alice Palmer's seat. I was supposed to meet at a fundraiser a year before that, but for reasons we may go into or not go into, I didn't get to attend it. But I ended up meeting Barack that next year, and I actually told him after he, had awarded me and Lloyd the awards, I actually told him I was going to be better than him because I actually got to observe and talk to him. I knew he was destined to do big things, and I thought he would be the next mayor of Chicago, because you got to remember Daley. But I actually knew that he was going to go to the highest level of the political game based upon that initial interaction and follow-up interactions that I had with him previous to him, declaring that he was going to run for U.S. Senate.
And interesting enough, you end up running for Senate later on in your life. I don't want to touch on that right now, but did that, I just got one question, did that affect your views on politics or eagerness to get into politics?
Yes, I thought that being able to, you got to think about it, Obama was not the only person that I met on that trail. I mean, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland is somebody I met, in New York in 97, 98 when he was, I want to say he was working for Citibank at the time, because I met him through Terry Williams, who was a publicist, through a connect here in Chicago that knew her. And I met him when, he was a Rhodes Scholar. So I know people on the other side of the pond, guys that I met in the private equity. So, I mean, all of that was going on. And that's why it was important for me to come back to King High School. And I thought coaching was going to be that way that I could relate to you guys. And then as I was able to substantiate myself in the other things that I was doing outside of football, I was actually creating a pathway for all of you guys coming behind me.
And also, I misspoke the first episode too. Man, I wasn't the first recruit in King College prep history, football recruit for sure, but our quarterback, who was also the point guard on the basketball team with David Dildy, he ended up signing a scholarship to Stanford University, man. You want to talk a bit about David, man?
David was King High School royalty based upon, I believe it was the Uncle Tracy Dildy. I believe his brother right now is an assistant coach at Duke. Great family.
He's the assistant head coach for Duke, Emmanuel Dildy.
Emmanuel Dildy, yeah. So great family, and for David to have come back and put it on the line to be the quarterback at King College Prep when he was probably one of the top point guards in the area, demonstrated, because that was a lot of convincing to do for David. And it's easy to forget about this because it was so long ago. That's why I didn't want to really go into another episode. I wanted to go on hiatus because as you put the information out there, all of that stuff comes back and you realize that you can be inaccurate about things that you just needed to reflect upon. And there are a lot of good people that are associated with King College Prep and King High School. And I just want to make sure that we set the record straight, because we're not trying to offend anybody. I just think this is a very authentic discussion, and there's just so many details that go into it when you go at where King High School, King College Prep, Bronzeville for that matter. I mean, not Bronzeville, Forestville. And that's the sad thing about King High School. There's 3 histories in King High School. There's Forestville, there's King High School, and then there's King College Prep. So when we talk about one, it's very easy to forget about the other 2 and not realize that those things all have familiarity because it's the same thing, but we don't speak on it that way. And that's what kind of undermines the history of the school when you don't have a total understanding that it all really started at Forestville, and King High School started with Johnny Crowder. Johnny Crowder was the first football coach at Forestville High School, and then it was taken over after he passed away. Reason I know is I was a Johnny Crowder Award winner for 2 years, my junior and my senior year, which was given to the best student athlete at King High School. And I was given that award for 2 years, and I wanted to learn more about who Johnny Crowder was and what he meant to the program. And it's pretty amazing that many King College Prep people don't know that Johnny Crowder was the first football coach in King High School history, but it was called Forestville at that point.
And it's so interesting that you bring up Forestville. One of my teammates, after our first episode, they sent me a screenshot from the group, from the Forestville King High School, King College Prep alumni group. And it was like, congratulations. And I'm like, what's going on? What is this? And it was an image of one of my acting headshots, and it said Miles is going to be the fundraiser or the funder of the I guess event that they had going on. It said the funding the new, but I had no knowledge of it. And I just felt it was so interesting that we started last week speaking on this topic. And a few days after that, I got that message from a classmate. Man, you really doing it big for King. And I'm like, Doug, I'm not even in communication with King.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a conversation I've had about King in a long time. And like you said, is bringing back memories. It's bringing back so many people. Some of my old teammates, your old players, reached out to me reminiscing, like, man, let me get an episode. I want to shout out Marquise Frazier. He hit me up. He was like, man, LeAlan, that's a deep dude. That was one of my first mentors, man. And
Marquise Frazier. Marquise Frazier, I want to believe scored maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns his freshman year, and miraculously got himself kicked off the team going into his sophomore year and never played again. It was one of the most, he wasn't the only kid that had a lot of talent that was denied the ability to play because they were talented and they could read and they could write and they were intellectually sound kids. And I think, how does one get to make a decision that impacted, and I'm pretty sure we'll talk to Keith about this later, but him and a few other guys were denied opportunities to play because they were very intellectual young men, and they didn't need to be dictated to. They just needed to be inspired and led. And unfortunately, that undermined their careers.
Yeah, he was a true leader, like in every essence of the word. I think he led the school, whether it be for good reasons.
I think so
bad.
too, and I think and it's one of those things that I think as we talk more about it, we can express these nuances that are just very inconsistent. And I mean, because at the end of the day, King High School is a school. The athletics are a secondary, not even a secondary responsibility of an academic institution. It probably falls down to 3rd level or 4th level. So for young men to have and they aren't the only ones. I think that happened at King High School, and I know that it happened at Forestville. So at every instance between those programs, there are probably as many young men that participated that were denied the opportunity to participate when you really want to be accurate about the record. And I think that needs to be discussed.
Man, yeah, I think it needs to be discussed too, but not on this hiatus episode.
Not on this hiatus
I want-
episode, but it's coming. It's coming.
It's definitely coming. You guys got a lot to look forward to. I want to touch on this too. You said Marquise grew up in the same, around the same time area as Juice Williams.
Yeah, Juice Williams, who ended up. I mean, they came from the same building. They came from the same building on Lake Park. Yeah, they came from the same building on 37th and Lake Park.
And is it true that Juice had some type of connection to King College Prep?
Juice had an older brother that played at King High School. I want to say his junior and senior year. And Juice played for the Cowboys, which were the grammar school program attached to King High School, because we didn't have a field. I don't think you knew this, Mal. That field that you practice on didn't exist. We didn't have King High School, Forestville, never had a dedicated football field.
Where did they practice at?
We practiced on the lakefront. We practiced at that park over there off of Ellis, that little small park, which wasn't suited for that. We practiced behind the school.
Behind the school, yeah.
Well, yeah, behind the school. We didn't have a dedicated field. And so, you know,
how did they acquire that field?
We got that field because Dr. Richard Smith lobbied for that. And he actually brought me on board to lobby for that down at City Hall in 1995. But they didn't start building on it until after
you
I
were
left.
A coach or a player?
No, when I was a student, 1995. Yeah, Dr. Smith, God rest his soul, great man. He was at odds with the alderman, Dr. Richard Smith, who was the principal at King High School when I was a student. He was at odds with then 4th Ward Alderman Tony Pretwinkle, because King High School at that point was in the 4th Ward. He did not have a great relationship with Tony Pretwinkle because King was an eyesore in the 4th Ward because of the academics. You know, people were always pulling fire alarms. There were always fights after school. You know, it was always a lot of issues, and he wanted basic things that he thought that the school needed, and he couldn't get it. One of them was a field. I mean, I remember walking to practice. We had to go practice at Hales Field, and I'm walking to practice at Hales, and I end up getting surrounded by like 7 to 8 dudes because I got into it with a dude at gym at 2 o'clock, and these dudes is coming at me on 46th Street going to Hales. And after that happened, we couldn't go to Hales no more. And so, you know, so we didn't get that field until it was lobbied for in 95, 96. The city didn't start building on it until 97, 98, but it was there and available for you guys when you got there by the time you got there in 2003. So that happened from Dr. Richard Smith and him bringing me on board to lobby for that down at City Hall.
Man, so you was laying foundation not when you were coaching, but when you were a student athlete at King High School, man. This is good information to know, man. I want to thank you for that, for you going down the lobby and seeing.
I don't remember. Listen, man, I don't even remember these things. They only come up because you asked me to go back and think about it, because a lot of that I've had to forget. It's like you forget about things like that, but when you look back at it at 47 years old, I was 15, 16 years old. You know what I mean?
That's
I'm
the
going
field that
down
they're still practicing on, and we have no access.
I have no connection. I have no connection to the school. I can't. None. I can't. I mean, I've talked with, you know, people there, but I have no connection with the school. And, you know, and really not seeking one, to be honest with you, but it's just astonishing to have put that much work in, starting when you're 15, 16 years old, and at 47 to have no connection to the school and really no need to.
Yeah, understood. And so then we had some questions about the Deprogram, and I wanted people to know that, man, we came up with this name because it's like, man, to think outside the box, you have to unlearn some of the ideals, the ideologies, the mindset that you have been taught or you have been programmed to think. And so, man, I think that mentors, positive influences help you think outside the box. LeAlan has been one of those forces in my life to help me think outside what has been given to me. And I think that's what we want to bring to you all through the Deprogram. You want to speak on that, LeAlan?
I think you can't say any more than that. I mean, this is not an episode, right? This is a follow-up from the first episode, and based upon the responses that we've gotten, that I requested that we actually go on hiatus after the first episode, because it's so many things that have to be clarified from the first episode because this is information that's, 23 years old. In some cases, if I'm talking about things from 95, it's almost, 30 years old. And it's like, we're going to have to talk about things that are older than that. I mean, because I think nobody wants to really look at it this way. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be, that King High School and Forestville High School on some levels became a tragedy.
Well, speak on
it's
that.
a tragedy. I think I can't do it in one episode, but to me, in my professional opinion, it was a tragedy when you look at how much was undermined for multiple generations of students and athletes from Forestville to King High School to King College Prep. I think there was a tragedy. And I think to be able to have this discussion as student athletes is one part of it. But at the end of the day, King High School, Forestville, it was a school.
Right.
It was a school. Right. And I think some people miss over that because if it was a school, then the first thing that a school has a priority to is what?
Academia.
And if we talk about King High School or Forestville or King...
The first thing that comes to mind is the sports, is basketball.
If we talk about King High School in the context of academics, from Forestville to King High School to King College Prep, I think it does a disservice to the students who achieve at King High School because they don't get recognized. And it was a school first.
Right.
And I think that's astonishing that the people who want to promote the legacy of King High School, they forget that it was a school.
It was a school, man. You hear about the basketball program, and then you hear about Coach Lonnie Williams, and then the next biggest thing, which is the biggest thing in the national history, is the Hiatus penalty situation.
Which is a very intriguing story. I think you went to school with those young men.
Right.
Well, they came after you, I believe.
They came after me, but I'm just speaking on the national attention that King has received. It has nothing to do with academia, and that's a valid point that you make there.
And I think that's where I think I wanted to go on hiatus because I don't want to have a discussion about a school that I thought and looked at somewhere to academically enhance myself to global matters. I mean, the athletics was cool, but it was a school first, and I think it does a disservice if, somebody like yourself who was a achieving student at King High School, and I was achieved as much as I could as a student at King High School, and what that translated to not talk about it at school does a disservice to the people that, the faculty members there that were teachers, that were dedicated educators at a school that they know they did not have the resources and the capacities to truly impact the student body the way that they wanted to, but they showed up to work every day and they gave a valiant effort. And I don't want to dismiss those educators that were at Forestville, that were at King High School, and those that came to King College Prep that were true professionals to holding the academic standard for young men and young women.
Yeah, man. And I think we should leave it at that. I got a bunch of recruiting questions for me, but I think that we'll leave that for episode 2, dude.
Episode 2. And remember, this is a hiatus.
This is a hiatus episode.
This is a hiatus. Yeah, this is a hiatus because I think we could easily go from 1 to 2, but I think to go back and look at 1 and to provide that insight and structure to what we're talking about. And you mentioned a name. I did not mention the name. Right? You mentioned the name, and I haven't mentioned that name because I just want to be very cautious in how I lay things out. And that's why I want to make sure that we look at what we talk about, not just your recruiting or any of that, but it was a school first. And, how does a school evolve into to have a legacy where academics is not academic achievement and academic excellence and academic rigor are not associated with King High School. And I find that astonishing because we were students before we were athletes. And we should always be students before athletes.
Hey, man, I think we're going to end it at that, man. I see you got the fire behind you, man. I'm sure you got some marshmallows somewhere over there.
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. I got a birthday in a couple weeks, man, so I'm just really mellowing out.
Man, well, you deserve it, Coach. You was at City Hall fighting for our football field, for the practice field, man. They still practicing that to this day.
Yeah, and I haven't stepped on that field. If this is 2026, I have not stepped on that field with any purpose in more than 20 years.
And you're not welcome. And I'm gonna end it on that, man. Thank you, sir.